When another person asks you what you're thankful for, do you respond with Path of Exile or the wrong answer? I know when my family gathers around the dinner table this Thanksgiving and it's my turn to give a declaration of thanks, it surely won't be family, friends, or food I respond with. It'll be the aRPG we all love to love and hate. Of course, I'm joking, right? Well, I've done quite a bit of preparation for my totally fake Thanksgiving speech. This video outlines every single post-launch expansion in Path of Exile history, taking us all for a trip down memory lane, a bit late for the game's 10-year anniversary. Just how thankful are you for all these updates? Probably not as thankful as Chris Wilson atop his mountain of sweet MTX money and Black Lotus cards. Still, you can be thankful enough to use this as your "what are you thankful for" response this year, I'm sure. Path of Exile 1 officially released on October 23rd, 2013, about 10 years ago. In those 10 tremendous years, PoE's developers, Grinding Gear Games, have released 33 total expansions, ranging in size from absolutely massive to small but meaningful in scope. Truly, GGG goes hard in every expansion to their beloved aRPG. Almost every single content update arrives with all or some of the following: unique items, new monsters, compelling crafting systems, skill gems, passive tree changes, innovative rewards, wicked boss fights, entire games within their game, wacky new archetypes, novel methods to break the game, and, of course, new players, new exiles, like you yourself once were, or are about to be. Because, my fellow or soon-to-be exile, once you witness exactly how much content has been added into Path of Exile over the past 10 years, after you see the care and passion these developers have, there's no way you won't be hooked. Without even logging into PoE, I'm going to give GGG your soul. Luckily, for the leagues I missed and wasn't a part of, Grinding Gear Games has been uploading every single one's trailer and content snapshots to YouTube. So we have access to absolutely everything either through their forums, Reddit posts, or, as I said, our beloved YouTube. Don't worry, it'll take about 40 minutes to explore the entire 10-year history of Path of Exile 1. About the time it takes to watch 2 episodes of The Office or make the perfect single slice of grilled cheese. Plus, it's a delicious watch, although that's a spoiler from me after hours and hours of editing. Be prepared. My fellow exiles, welcome and well met. I'm Talkative Try. On this channel, we talk about Path of Exile, its development, and its competitors. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. More on how you can support at the end. Now, let's get to it. 2013, a true beginning. In 2013, Grinding Gear Games launched Path of Exile after about 2 years of heavy beta testing. PoE's launch added the Dominus boss fight to the end of Act 3, introduced the Scion as a playable character class, dropped in a ton of new items unique and normal, and came with 2 challenge leagues: Domination, also known as the Shrine League, and Nemesis, also known as the league that introduced the legendary Headhunter unique item to the game. For the uninitiated, this wild unique allows you to steal and use the passive modifiers of rare monsters you kill. In the present, it's still one of the most valuable and rare items in the entire game. Well, now that was a short year. Buckle up, because every year after, GGG chose to take a completely different highway. 2014, a solid foundation. In 2014, GGG released 3 major expansions, versions 1.1 through 1.3. The first one, titled Sacrifice of the Val, was coined a mini expansion, but it was anything but. 1.1 added PoE's first real endgame boss, Queen at Ziri, innovated with the idea of corruption with corrupted implicits, Val orbs, and Val skill gems, and gave players 2 new challenge leagues to attempt: Ambush, better known as the Strongbox League, and Invasion, remembered by all who played it as one of the rippiest early leagues. Insanely powerful monsters. Think buffed Arc Nemesis mobs of the recent past would invade your maps in Invasion and instantly kill you. This was back when one league was for softcore players and the other was for hardcore players. Invasion was the hardcore league and the cause of numerous fixes from the developers throughout the league's duration. The highlight of 1.1 was definitely the chests, both strongboxes and Queen Edziri. 1.2 was the next expansion, called Forsaken Masters. It conceived the concept of masters, daily master missions, and basic deterministic crafting. Back then, there were way more masters than we have now, and they all had unique, interesting, and sometimes frustrating missions, like kill only one mob out of a pack. Alongside the expansion came 2 leagues, Rampage, basically a kill streak league, and Beyond, a literally hardcore league that caused reskinned bandits, who were supposed to be demons, to leap out of monster corpses. It was supposedly incredibly and lovingly difficult. Most exiles look back on it fondly. 1.3 was the final update of 2014. It merely arrived with 2 new challenge leagues, Torment, the Ghost League that gave crazy buffs to monsters, and Bloodlines, a different variation on Nemesis. Instead of giving rare monsters interesting modifiers, Bloodlines gave entire packs new modifiers. Also, PvP was pushed hard this expansion with the introduction of Leo Redmayne, Forsaken Master of the Arena. It promptly died off after this. I've not heard of anyone sad about PvP's funeral in modern day Path of Exile. 2015. A bang, then silence. In 2015, GGG unleashed a new era of PoE unto all us exiles, 2.0, alongside one other major expansion, 2.1. 2.0, titled The Awakening, added a 4th act to Path of Exile, a brand new type of item to craft and collect, jewels, the oh-so-beloved lockstep feature to help address desync, the divination card system, 119 brand new unique items, a host of new skill gems like Ice Crash, Frost Blades, and Magma Orb, and, oh, I didn't forget, 2 challenge leagues, Warbands and Tempest. These were definitely smaller league mechanics, with the former merely introducing tight-knit monster packs with specific mechanics and drops to maps, and the latter adding little bubbles that caused magical effects to both you and your foes. Oh, it also added item filters, too, and a bunch of other endgame map changes to Path of Exile. I wonder if that last update was in preparation for something coming later. Late in the year, on December 15th, 2015, more than 6 months after 2.0's release, the Talisman expansion and league landed in PoE. In this challenge league, the first challenge league that was almost identical in softcore and hardcore, Ezomite talismans made monsters more powerful. You could take the talismans when you killed said monsters and make them powerful yourself. It's been stated by the man himself, Chris Wilson, that talisman was his little loved baby. That was not the truth for most of the player base though, who were, let's say, displeased with talisman. Other than a host of new unique items and balance changes, there wasn't much else. It was preparing Path of Exile players for a huge 2016. 2016. Incredible developments begin. In 2016, the PoE developers let loose 4 major expansions into the dark world of Rayclast, 2.2 to 2.5. The first of these absolute bangers was 2.2, called Ascendancy. This expansion brought Ascendancy classes to Path of Exile, granting every character class besides the Scion 3 archetypes they could ascend to, granting far more powerful and defined passives on a smaller Ascendancy skill tree. Exiles could ascend by braving the Lord's Labyrinth, a series of maps filled with monsters, traps, and 3 boss fights with Emperor Izaro. You only had 1 life in the entirety of this trial, but if you made it to the end, you could ascend. This was probably the single largest leap forward in terms of character archetype customizability in PoE's history, and remains foundational to the game today. Seriously, think about when you went from simply adding numbers together to multiplying and dividing them. Didn't you feel big and smart? This was the same deal. Alongside all 19 Ascendancy classes and the lab came Parandus League, wherein players could find caches, slay their guards, find Parandus coins, and trade them with Kadiro Parandus himself for rewards ranging from ungodly valuable to utter trash. This was also the start of the 40 Challenges League format, during which you could earn in-game armor, character effects, weapons, and more for completing difficult or random tasks during the Challenge League. Beforehand, you could earn some cosmetics and even t-shirts for varying numbers of challenges. While I'm sad I didn't get a t-shirt I could sweat in for all eternity like Kriparian, I'll make do with my wicked MTX. Oh, this expansion also brought in flasks. A lot of new flasks. And the new keyword that everyone loves, recently. 2.3 was definitely smaller than Ascendancy, bringing the Prophecy League to PoE. Prophecy as a mechanic allowed you to go on certain prophesized quests or tasks, complete them, and gain a particular reward from Navali and her monkey, Yama the White. Additionally, the endgame Labyrinth was added, and characters could gain an extra 2 Ascendancy points, raising the total to 8, where it sits today. You could feel the power shift then, Exile. 2.4 was the beloved Atlas of Worlds expansion, Path of Exile's first deep foray into true endgame territory. Before this patch, there was no real way to track your progress through maps. With its introduction, you could now visually see how you were faring as you sailed across the Atlas in pursuit of the 4 Guardians of the Void and their insane master and vital character to PoE 1's lore, the Shaper. As a result, Zana Kaiserius' lore was also deepened. Oh, the fan favorite Zana. How your story was just beginning. As it was just the birth of the Atlas, maps looked wildly different than they do today. For example, to upgrade tiers, you used a Shaper's Orb, which upgraded a white or yellow map by 5 tiers. Wacky, but perfectly Path of Exile. Plus, this was the expansion with Essence League. Essences gave players brand new powerful crafting options for items, rewarding them with essences when they slew essence-trapped monsters in areas. 2.5 surged in with the Breach League and a swath of engine updates to finish off this excellent year of Path of Exile. Breach as a mechanic was simple. You run into a purple hand and it creates a growing circle with brand new monsters to kill. Eventually, it shrinks and the monsters disappear. Yes, you could also collect splinters to go to 4 special Breach realms, but the main mechanic of this league was to kill monsters in a circle. 55 new unique items arrived with this patch, with 35 of them being exclusive to the Breach Challenge League. Additionally, Path of Exile got a new renderer, melee action targeting was greatly improved, and preloading improvements were made. Lots of quality of life improvements meant something big was coming in the relatively near future. 2017, Legacy into a New Age. In 2017, GGG kicked off with one long, medium-sized expansion, 2.6, and the next age of PoE soon after, 3.0, which was followed by one other major expansion, 3.1. 2.6 was named Legacy League because it was a super lengthy league dedicated to paying tribute to 17 leagues of the past, and it meant to buy GGG time for their largest release yet, 3.0. It allowed players, especially those who missed out on PoE's earlier leagues, a chance to play a set of long-gone leagues, all juiced up and fun. Truly, it was a farewell to the early, janky, first 4 years of PoE. But on top of Legacy League, 2.6 also brought the solo self-found mode to Path of Exile. This allowed players to experience the game in a solo environment. In this mode, they couldn't trade or party with others, though they could still see them in town areas. At any time, you could opt your character out, but plenty of people played this to truly challenge themselves and, of course, to establish bragging rights over other PoE players. Oh, and GGG added stairs to Lionize Watch. The Fall of Oriath, also known as 3.0, hit on August 4th, 2017. It was a spicy shock to the entire Path of Exile community in terms of its sheer size and scope. When GGG released the trailer for this expansion, they had kept the fact they were adding 6 acts to the game under wraps. Therefore, when the trailer kept showing new act after act, the PoE community went berserk. Due to the addition of 6 brand new acts, difficulty modes were removed from Path of Exile in 3.0. Now players progressed from Act 1 to 10 into the epilogue, where the true game began. Also in this update, the character select screen changed. The Pantheon system was added. The tutorial was significantly upgraded. Yes, the game has a tutorial. The game HUD was updated. A ton more quality of life balance updates and new features arrived. And the Harbinger Challenge League was introduced, allowing characters to battle mysterious aliens from afar to gather tons of currency shards and new currency types. The patch notes for 3.0 were seriously titanic. 3.1 set the focus back to the highly successful Atlas with an expansion titled War for the Atlas. It shambled in the Elder and his 4 guardians to the game alongside 32 new maps. Plus, this was Abyss League. Players could follow along a crack that dynamically moved through an area, spewing forth wretched monsters along the way. Sometimes it ended in an abyssal depths, in which a vile lich boss awaited. These were insanely rare, but when you found them, oh, it felt so good. Like a glass of strawberry crystal light mixed with a grapefruit LaCroix and some tequila after a 3.14 mile run. Yes, that was pretty specific. 2018, the banger year. In 2018, GGG released 4 major content versions, 3.2 to 3.5. Let me tell you, GGG did not miss this year. They cooked, and they cooked hard. 3.2 barreled into Path of Exile to begin 2018 on March 2nd. It brought the admonished at the time Bestiary League and the absolutely beloved Einhar. On top of that, it introduced what many believe to be PoE's best fight, the Uber Elder Encounter, a battle in which exiles fought both the Elder and Shaper at the same time. Back to Bestiary. Way back then, you couldn't just kill beasts. You had to catch them with a net. You could purchase these nets from Einhar or find them throughout the world. The lower the health the beast had, the better chance you had to catch it. If you caught it, it was added to your bestiary and could be used in beast crafting. Seriously similar to another IP. Yeah? You could also rarely capture beasts that led you to legendary bestiary bosses that dropped rad uniques sculpted around the particular animal they were based on. That was also awesome. Oh, also, GGG casually rebalanced all 19 Ascendancy classes. 3.3 was equally as ambitious as Bestiary and hit just 3 months later, on June 1st, 2018. Say hello to Incursion League. Incursion had us exiles meet Elva Velai and help her travel into the past to find the lost temple of Atzoatl. Area by area, you could reconstruct this lost temple as you willed, and the RNG gods willed, grabbing yourself different rewards and gambits along the way. There was also a pretty cool Roomba boss that you could edit and find inside the temple at the end. 3.3 added a set of new trap skill gems into the game, like Flamethrower Trap and the once beyond meta Seismic Trap. Additionally, there were hundreds and hundreds of lines of balance changes, mostly to skill gems, although various items, monsters, and passive skill trees were also touched up. 3.4 was absolutely incredible and named Delve League. That's right, this was when the Azurite Mine and Delving were introduced. Just 3 months after Incursion, GGG just kept rolling out banger expansions. The Azurite Mine was the home of the expansion's namesake mechanic, Delve. Essentially, it was a limitless dungeon you could delve deeper and deeper within, cracking open passages to find mysterious and powerful fossils, battle 3 hidden, quite mechanically varied and unique bosses, and truly test how far your character could go. You always wanted to go deeper and deeper, Exile, until you just couldn't dig anymore. Now that's a good feeling. Plus, 3.4 reworked a bunch of skills like Dominating Blow and Caustic Arrow, kept building on the Shaper Elder endgame with the introduction of Shaper Strongholds, and reshaped the Templar section of the passive skill tree. 3.5 landed at the end of 2018 and was given the title of Betrayal. Fun fact, it was supposed to be called Path of Exile Immortal, but another game announcement just around this time completely changed that. This big ol' league reworked the Forsaken Master system introduced all the way back in 1.2. Remember that? Now, there were 5 masters. Einhar for Bestiary, Nico for Delve, Zana for the Atlas, Elva for Incursion, and the new girl on the block, June Ortoi, for Betrayal, this league's mechanic. Betrayal was yet another game within Path of Exile, allowing you to control a vast web of interweaving characters and relationships to receive big payoffs, and eventually battle a super cool boss, one of our former masters, Katarina. The expansion also overhauled master crafting and united all crafting behind a single item, the crafting bench in your hideout. Yeah, you used to use many different benches to craft. As extras, 3.5 brought Impale to the game, tackled another absolute ton of insane balancing to every single sphere of PoE, introduced true target farming with scarabs, and added a new community favorite skill gem, Winter Orb. Betrayal was quite the amazing way to close out the year of 2018 for Path of Exile. 2019, an era of experiments. In 2019, Grinding Gear Games released another 4 sweeping content updates, 3.6 to 3.9. Fun fact, someone named Talkative Try began playing in 3.8. 3.6, released on March 8th, 2019, brought in Synthesis League. Upon release, it was an absolute buggy mess, although players could see the genius behind it. Essentially, it was a huge crafting and alternate mapping mechanic league wherein you could craft various maps together to chain one after the other. These maps would slowly be swallowed by a blue haze as you ran them. Additionally, you could use the synthesizer to craft super strong items and the memory nexus as your home base. On top of all these gameplay mechanics, Synthesis also dropped in a bunch of lore about Zana, her father, known to players as the Shaper, and his descent into madness and relationship with Denarius, the villain of Synthesis League. Truly, despite the flaws and jankiness, which were fixed about a month into the league, Synthesis sounds like one of the greatest leagues of all time. 3.7 was a far cry from Synthesis League. Instead, it gave us Exiles the Legion Challenge League, a relatively simple kill monsters in a circle that stems from a crystal mechanic. New Legion monoliths spawned in areas which, when interacted with, summoned frozen armies around your exile which you could kill to break free from the stasis. After a timer ended, all the broken troops would spawn around you and fight against you and each other. The pinnacle encounter added with Legion was the Domain of Timeless Conflict, a special area in which you could pit up to 5 armies against each other and yourself. Plus, you could earn the brand new Timeless Jewels from them, which completely changed the way you could build your skill tree and which keystones you had access to. While simple in concept, it was an absolutely beloved league that also pushed Melee up to the top with tremendous Cyclone buffs and capabilities. 3.8 released right around the same time as World of Warcraft Classic, so GGG decided to go super experimental and introduce the Blight Challenge League, an expansion revolving around tower defense and PoE. Yes, they really did this. This expansion brought the wonderful singer Sister Cassia to Rayclast and pitted Exiles against streams and streams of monsters who spawned from mycelium roots. We could build various towers to defend a pump against them and eventually play map-wide tower defense with blighted maps. 3.8 had quite lower player numbers throughout thanks to WoW Classic and the odd mechanic, but as it was my first league ever and my introduction to PoE, it'll hold a special place in my heart forever. I am thankful for 3.8. 3.9 doubled up as a huge endgame overhaul and Challenge League introduction. This fondly remembered December expansion was called Conquerors of the Atlas, and it was paired with Metamorph League. The endgame completely changed with this patch, retiring the Shaper and Elder as the main fights and introducing 5 Conquerors of the Atlas, former exiles who went insane from grinding too many maps. They were headed by Cirrus, whose fight was despised by many and still is, even though I think it's incredible. Plus, each non-Cirrus new boss owned its own influence type that could appear on an item, giving those items access to a completely new pool of affixes. The update also changed the way we interacted with the Atlas, swapping from the old system of upgrading maps and chasing the Elder and Shaper to a system with watchstones and Atlas regions. Now, you could earn and socket watchstones to deterministically upgrade your entire atlas and all maps across it. These new boss fights added item influence types and changed atlas mechanics weren't all. The Metamorph Challenge League also came along, in which players could find organs of monsters and literally build their own boss with its own rewards. 3.9 was a blissful end to Path of Exile 1 in the year 2019. In addition to this great ending, GGG's next game, Path of Exile 2, was announced. Originally, it was supposed to be the largest expansion of all time to Path of Exile 1, deemed 400 for a long while, but as we'll see soon enough, they decided to split it out and develop both aRPGs concurrently. 2020, Impactful Systems Ahoy. In 2020, GGG pushed through 3 enormously important updates, 3.10 to 3.12. The first upped the upper limit of how far you could go to push your character. The second gave exiles access to the most powerful items to ever exist in PoE. The third provided alternate playstyles for limitless new builds and a brand new form of endgame alongside the Atlas and Delve. 3.10 Delirium League came out just as the world was going through quite a few problems. And wow, was it quite the expansion for that period. Fun fact, Delirium's name until that specific event occurred was called Affliction. GGG decided to rename it and reuse it for their upcoming 3.23 release instead. In Delirium, GGG introduced the entire concept of the Mirror of Delirium, which caused a fog to encompass an area and add tons of monsters and difficulty to it. Additionally, Delirium maps and the Simulacrum, a wave-based endgame encounter, were added. Alongside these 3 pieces of content, we finally got our hands on cluster jewels. Succinctly, the ability to make our own passive skill tree on our passive skill tree. Wild. With these new toys, exiles were able to make some of the most broken aura and herald stackers imaginable, capable of annihilating and surviving every piece of content in the game. 3.11 Harvest League brought in harvest crafting, the most powerful form of crafting ever in the history of Path of Exile at the time. Legions of exiles were able to build their own factories in the Sacred Grove, collect juice from super colorful monsters, and use said juice to deterministically make the best PoE items ever. Quite often, people look super fondly on Harvest and the ability we all had to make best in slot items for every single slot on our characters. But this wasn't only available for the 1%. As long as you played and understood the crafting system, anyone was capable of building a GG item. It was amazing and not as complex or chance-based as usual PoE crafting. This league also super buffed slam-based skills and war cries, in addition to adding a brand new PoE renderer, Vulcan. Wicked additions all around, really. 3.12 Heist League was ambitious and let loose the rogues of the Rogue Harbor into PoE. Exiles bought their way into this new area, worked with a bunch of thieves, and began robbing unique tile sets across Rakelast to find dozens of new unique items called replica uniques, hundreds of alternate quality gems, and a wide set of new item bases. This was probably the largest patch in PoE history in terms of sheer content added. Heisting was a new standalone form of endgame and a different playstyle than usual Path of Exile. Each reward type was original, from the niche replica uniques to the amazing alternate quality gems, which added new upgrade paths and possibilities to every PoE character. Then there was the entire minigame of equipping your crew and earning the first permanent new item slot in quite some time, the Trinket slot. On top of all this, GGG added in a group of new skill gems like Void Sphere and Firewall, and they revamped Steel and Curse skills too. That brings us to the end of 2020, my fellow exiles. And wow, was it a big year for Path of Exile, adding in a bunch of distinct systems and content types that would stay in Path of Exile 1 forevermore. 2021, the year of the Nerf hammer. In 2021, GGG launched 4 historic expansions, 3.13 to 3.16. 3.13 was quite the banger to begin 2021 with. Echoes of the Atlas and the Ritual Challenge League together are seen by a decent swath of the PoE community as the best duo of updates to hit PoE ever. Echoes introduced the Maven as a brand new endgame boss alongside her unique ability to capture map bosses with the Exiles' help and then set them off against the exile in her arena, the Maven's Crucible. As we quickly learned though, this wasn't limited to just map bosses. We could also capture bosses like the Shaper, the Elder, and the Conquerors to then battle all of them at the same time in the Crucible. This alone was incredible. And then there were the Atlas passive trees, plural. Back then, the Atlas was split into regions, and each region had its own distinct passive tree. Then, each region also had its own set of watchstones which could roll specific modifiers. Yep, it really used to be like that. Alongside all this, 11 new maps were added, and so was the ritual mechanic, a bartering reward style system that allowed us to battle monsters in a specific circular arena, then use their tribute to choose items from a big reward screen. Simple but elegant. A perfect addition alongside the Maven. Ascendancies were also retouched, Harvest was added to the core game, and so was Heist in full. Whew, that was a meaty update. 3.14 came soon after Echoes of the Atlas with the Ultimatum Challenge League. It introduced the Ultimatum mechanic, reworked almost every single reward type across PoE, brought in new blood-based skills to the game, and touched on all things Val. The Ultimatum mechanic was mostly beloved, as was its primary NPC, the Trial Master. In Ultimatum, you faced wave after wave of enemies as they became more powerful with modifiers you chose for them, while continuing to choose and up your rewards. If you lost a round though, you lost all your rewards. It was pretty cool, with a set of new monsters that have yet to return to PoE. 3.15 marched in on July 23, 2021 with the Expedition Challenge League. Like Heist before it, Expedition was quite the substantial add to the game, bringing a host of new NPCs, areas, bosses, and rewards to PoE. On top of bartering, gambling for new items, and unburying the remnants of lost civilizations, 3.15 added 19 new skill gems like Bone Shatter, Rage Vortex, Explosive Concoction, and Forbidden Rite to the game. Coinciding with all these additions, GGG implemented a huge balance update, bringing down the overall power level of all PoE characters, either through editing damage values, reworking flasks entirely, and plenty else. We experienced the largest shakeup in PoE history in this memorable patch. While the community was quite vocal about not liking nearly all these changes, GGG mostly stood their ground in the power nerfs, with Chris Wilson himself leaping on a private jet and zooming around the podcastosphere to talk to every decent-sized PoE content creator out there. 3.16 surged to Path of Exile right after Expedition with the Scourge Challenge League on October 22nd, 2021. Its mechanic involved charging items full of blood and corruption using a crucible, granting them a major downside and upside. While this pseudo-crafting mechanic was not well received, the actual Scourged monsters, their implementation, and the currency they dropped was. Essentially, it gave players an entire second go at an area as they rampaged through hordes of Scourge demons. On top of the league mechanic, 3.16 introduced passive skill masteries to the passive skill tree. These masteries acted as an advanced, choosable stat located in thematic clusters around the tree. Alongside this add, GGG put in a number of iconic skill gems, like Energy Blades, Poisonous Concoction, and Tornado. Layered in with the balance revamps was new endgame Uber content for various leagues. Flawless Breachstones for Breach, Blight Ravaged maps for Blight, Level 30 Simulacrum for Delirium, and Unrelenting Emblems for Legion. Plus, boss encounters became more common in Delve. 2021 really was a year of pulling back player power after a decade of power multipliers. It was rocky, with Expedition likely being the worst of all of it, and spawning quite a few Chris Wilson podcast encounters. However, GGG was poised to smash player expectations in the coming year. 2022, the highest peaks and lowest valleys. In 2022, the intrepid PoE developers launched 4 substantial content patches, 3.17 to 3.20, with the first probably adding the single greatest evolvable endgame system ever present in PoE. 3.17 arrived to Path of Exile as a double header, both a huge endgame expansion, Siege of the Atlas, and a challenge league, Arch Nemesis, on February 4th, 2022. Let's pause a second. If you've played through PoE's current endgame, what's the best part of it? I am confident in your answer. It's what GGG added in this patch, the Atlas-wide passive skill tree. PoE went from no Atlas skill tree to 8, then to 4, and finally to a single one that affected every map on the Atlas. Hey you, pick your jaw up off the floor. This was the ultimate arbiter of player agency, allowing exiles to completely carve the game as they liked. Really, this was GGG giving us the world. Truly genius. On top of this, 3.17 added 4 new pinnacle bosses: the Infinite Hunger, the Black Star, the Searing Exarch, and the Eater of Worlds. It also rid of the entire Watchstone Atlas upgrading mechanic and streamlined it completely, changing the need for 16 Watchstones, and 32 before that, to a mere 4 Voidstones, earned by slaying each top tier pinnacle boss in the endgame. This patch also added Eldritch-influenced crafting, lowering the barrier of entry for crafters, brought in powerful new unique items like Ashes of the Stars, and implemented the Arc Nemesis Build Your Own Loot Pinata Challenge League. This let us exiles create our own rare monsters, with brand new monster modifiers and reward types attached to each, and it was an omen of what was upcoming. Doom. True doom. 3.18 came with a Sentinel Challenge League, a host of uber bosses, and plenty of controversy due to its implementation of Arc Nemesis into the core game. The Sentinel mechanic itself was great, giving us little robots to buff monsters' power and loot with. Plus, it dropped Recombination into the game, 3 items that allowed us to combine weapons, jewelry, and armor to try and smash various modifiers together onto a single item. It was phenomenal. The Uber boss ad was also great, giving top tier players a new challenge to face. Another awesome feature in this expansion were Atlas passive keystones, nodes that drastically changed how you used your Atlas. GGG even went mad and decided to commit 0 balance changes in Sentinel, which was actually kind of cool for a league. The addition of Arc Nemesis though, less than beloved. It replaced how rares used to work and gave them special, usually complicated and convoluted Arc Nemesis modifiers and loot types, which frustrated many players. GGG kept at balancing this the whole league, and leading into the next. Yes, we've finally arrived at the dreaded expansion, Exiles. 3.19 Lake of Calandra hit PoE on August 19th, 2022. By many, including myself, this is seen as the worst PoE league in recent memory, if not ever. I'm not kidding. In my entire time playing PoE since Blight, this is the league I played the least by far. Calandra added the Lake of Calandra mechanic, an area you could construct using various tiles and tablets, sort of similar to Incursion. Each tile placed would give a specific reward type, with the rarest allowing you to reflect a piece of jewelry, greatly swinging its modifier values. Sounds cool, yeah? Then GGG added Atlas Memories, wild new ways to experience prior league mechanics. Also sweet. 4 new gems arrived too, which were all well received, especially Lightning Conduit. That's great. The Trickster was revamped too, and it was received well. All this buildup, oh my, it's intense. Are you tingling with anticipation? Then a bunch of new uniques came in and lots were buffed. The Trial Master from Ultimatum also returned via a unique map. Good stuff. Finally, 3 leagues were completely revamped: Beyond, Harvest, and Arch Nemesis, and its effect on rare monsters. This is where the problem stemmed. Beyond was changed completely. We said goodbye to the old janky models and hello to the scourgified Beyond monsters. The mechanic was still okay, just not as insane as it used to be. Harvest, though, had lots of its most powerful and beloved crafts removed. Their removal was claimed to be the removal of filler crafts. That was not true and not a good way to phrase it. This sparked outrage when people logged in and discovered this. Then, GGG doubled down on Arc Nemesis and pumped up the rare monster difficulty and loot pinata nature of them. Lots of rare monsters, bricked builds, were too difficult to kill, downright frustrating, or way too exploitable by groups who hunted loot. After a bunch of fighting, vitriol, and damage control by Chris Wilson, GGG implemented lots of changes to Arc Nemesis and went even further in their final patch of 2022. 3.20 The Forbidden Sanctum was a breath of fresh air after Lake of Calandra. Truly. First of all, GGG almost entirely went back on how they balanced rare monsters, making far fewer modifiers, brick character builds, or just far less frustrating to battle. This was good. This was a buff to us exiles. Then, of course, there was the Sanctum mechanic, an entire roguelike in PoE. 4 floors of goodness, with 4 new unique bosses added, including Lycia's double phase fight. On top of this currency pumping mechanic, GGG added tantalizing new unique items specific to Sanctum, alongside account-bound sanctified relics that provided incredible character power in a new item slot that did not make it to the core game. 3.20 doubled down on Val skills, adding 7 new ones, alongside 2 brand new skill gems too, Frozen Legion and Volcanic Fissure. Alongside all the additions and changes to the main game with jewels, ailments, and the like, GGG also let players tackle Ruthless, a new version of PoE with extreme item scarcity and completely revamped mechanics across the board. It was a lovely end to 2022. 2023, the glorious present. Finally, the current year. In 2023, GGG has so far released 2 expansions, with a 3rd releasing on December 8th. 3.21 blazed in Crucible League, an expansion revolving around forging the best possible weapons in Path of Exile history. It introduced the Crucible Forge mechanic, which allowed us to add passive skill trees to our weapons and a few select unique items. We could combine these trees in the Forge of the Titans, an area special to Crucible. The Saboteur and Pathfinder Ascendancies received changes, some that turned the Pathfinder into an absolute powerhouse. 9 new Val skills were added, and Abyss and Breach were reforged in the fires of Crucible. Really, it was a smaller league leading into ExileCon, a larger 3.22, and hopefully a massive 3.23. ExileCon 2023 occurred between 3.21 and 3.22. This huge PoE-only convention was the home of plenty of PoE announcements, including the fact that PoE 2 would no longer be a massive expansion to PoE 1, but its own standalone sequel. However, fret not, GGG planned to develop both games at the same time, in perpetuity. Yes, it's true. Regardless, this led to doubt within the player base, who wondered whether or not PoE 1 would eventually die off or was currently suffering in terms of content due to the developers focusing on PoE 2. We're going over every expansion here. I'll let you decide what you think. It's still an ongoing situation as I write this for YouTube. From 2013 to the present, do you see expansion quality falling off as they began work on Path of Exile 2 in 2018 and 2019? Let me know. Anyways, onward. 3.22 dropped just after ExileCon 2023 and was given the name Trial of the Ancestors, or TOTA. TOTA gave us the chance to play an auto-battler in PoE and completely cheese the hell out of PoE like never before. Rewards-wise, we got tattoos, a way to revitalize taking attributes on our passive skill tree by changing them into entirely different benefits, like maximum resistances, increased life, entire keystones, explodey mods, and more. Plus, 2 ascendancies were reworked, the Chieftain and the Guardian. And the Forbidden Sanctum was reintroduced to the core game. Finally, 16 new Atlas keystones were added to the Atlas passive skill tree. Plenty of them were absolutely game-changing and reinvigorated lots of playstyles. It was a great patch, even if the league mechanic itself was polarizing. 3.23 is the next league releasing for Path of Exile 1. Its name is Affliction. I've put out some speculation on this league, but beyond that speculation, there's nothing else. It's supposed to be ambitious. It's a holiday expansion with a new set of core supporter packs. I'm expecting a big update. We'll get what we get and be thankful, I'm sure. 2013 to 2023 to sum it all up. There we have it, 10 years of Path of Exile 1 in under an hour. I promised you wouldn't be here too long. About the time it takes to heat up some Costco orange chicken or figure out how to properly open and close a resealable bag. And from absolutely everything I just laid out, there's a ton I needed to skip over, and seriously, most of the aspects I highlighted are still in the Path of Exile 1 of today. The Shrines from Domination, Headhunter from Nemesis, At Ziri from Sacrifice of the Vow, strong boxes from Ambush, random bosses from Invasion, master missions from Forsaken Masters, the Rampage mechanic from Rampage, Beyond Demons from Beyond, Ghosts from Torment, upgraded monster pack mods from Bloodlines, jewels from the Awakening, mat bosses from Warbands, storms from Tempest, talismans from Talisman, Ascendancy classes and the Labyrinth from Ascendancy, Kadiro Parandus from Parandus, reformed fated uniques from Prophecy, the Atlas from the Atlas of Worlds, along with the Shaper and his Guardians, essences and essence monsters from Essence, everything Breach related, stones and all from Breach, solo self-found mode from Legacy, the 10-act structure from the Fall of Oriath, Harbingers and currency shards from Harbinger League, the Elder and his Guardians from War for the Atlas, everything like Liches, Depths, and Stygian Vices from Abyss League, Einhar, Beasts and Beast Crafting from Bestiary, the Temple of Atzoatl, Elva, and the Double Corruption Chamber from Incursion, the entire Azurite Mine, Fossils, and Nico from Delve, the entire Safe House and Master System and Scarabs from Betrayal, synthesized items and the unique bosses from Synthesis, everything Legion from Legion, Sister Cassia, Oils, and the Mechanic from Blight, Sirius and the Conquerors, Metamorph, Catalysts, and Awakened Gems from Conquerors of the Atlas and Metamorph League, Delirious Maps, the Mirror of Delirium, and Simulacrum, all from Delirium League, Harvest Crafting in a heavily modified form, the Oshabi boss fight, and the juicy Harvest monsters from Harvest, the entire Rogue Harbor and all associated systems from Heist, the Maven, multi-boss arena battles, and Ritual from Echoes of the Atlas and Ritual League, the Trial Master and his associated uniques from Ultimatum, with hopefully more coming soon, all the NPCs, mechanics, and cool uniques from Expedition, the Scourge Demon monster models and Tainted Currency from Scourge League, the Atlas-wide passive skill tree, Eldritch Crafting, 4 new Pinnacle bosses, brand new rare monster modifiers, and reworked Atlas system from Siege of the Atlas and Arc Nemesis League, Awakened Empower, Enhance, and Enlighten, and Uber bosses from Sentinel, the Exalted and Divine Orb swap up from Lake of Calandra, the entire roguelike game within a game from the Forbidden Sanctum, the 9 new Val skill gems and revamped Pathfinder from Crucible, game-changing Atlas keystones and unique items from Trial of the Ancestors, and who knows what from 3.23 Affliction, which is coming soon. All I know is some people call Path of Exile bloated and difficult to get into. I see it as content rich, filled with limitless possibilities, and seriously rewarding to master. I look forward for many years to come with this masterpiece, alongside anything else GGG decides to release. Quick wardrobe and lighting change. I'm pulling a Sir Gog. I mentioned earlier in the video a Thanksgiving meal speech about Path of Exile, and while I was joking, I do have a speech somewhat prepared. I am thankful for Path of Exile, the only game that has consistently been able to put me in a true flow state of bliss and enjoyment. I am thankful for Grinding Gear Games, one of the best, most passionate, transparent, and ingenious developers in the entire video game industry. Truly, we are lucky to have them. And finally, I am thankful for the entire Path of Exile community, especially those that we've built here on YouTube. All our comments are thoughtful, discussions are meaningful, and the relationships that we've formed over these past months and almost a year are real. Truly, we are lucky to have played this game and built this phenomenal community. But what do you think? Are you thankful for all of the expansions to PoE? Which one was your favorite? Which one was your least favorite? Are you excited for the next one, 3.23 Affliction? And are you excited for the next 10 years of Path of Exile? Let me know in the comments, fellow exiles. A massive thanks to each and every one of you who watched this whole video. I deeply appreciate it. And here's an even larger shout out to all those who support me on Patreon and through YouTube. You can find links to support the channel in the description for as little as $1 per month. Now, please check out these other videos on screen. I have an inkling you'll enjoy them. Anyways, that's all for this video. Tala Moana, Exile.